Welcome back to Close Up. The Republican nominee looking to flip the 1st District back into the red column is Matt Mowers, who served in the Trump State Department and has the personal endorsement of President Donald Trump in this race. Mr. Mowers is our guest this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Adam, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure to be with you.
So, Matt, President Trump walks away from the table on a large-scale COVID-19 relief package just weeks before the election now. How do you think this helps anyone to cut off negotiations and then say you want standalone bills?
Well, look, I've said this, I said in a debate the other day, I think everyone in Washington, D.C. needs to get to the middle of the room and start negotiating and get something done. And you see this throughout the entire place down in Washington, D.C. right now. You see Nancy Pelosi and Chris Pappas, who've been sitting around for 6 months, not passing anything that they know will actually be able to become a law. And that's the problem right now. You've got folks in their individual corners. They're not talking to each other. They're not trying to actually help people for what they actually need. It's a lot of agendas right now. You know, a lot of my neighbors are small business owners. A lot of my neighbors work for small businesses. They need help right now. You know, especially as the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry turns to cooler weather, we're not sure if they're going to be able to survive the winter. So we need people in Washington, D.C., starting with Congress, by the way, to get their job done and actually start delivering for the people that they seek to represent every day.
According to reports, the Trump administration just really began contact tracing of the potential outbreak of COVID-19 at the White House within the last few days. But it does not appear that that was happening when the president was initially diagnosed a week ago. How can this administration make the case that it's doing everything it can for the American people to protect them from the virus when it's not even doing anything that quickly to protect its own people in the White House?
Well, look, everyone needs to take this virus seriously. And, you know, I certainly did. I was the first candidate in the country to call for travel restrictions on the outset of this epidemic. And that's guided by my personal experience. You know, I worked with Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx to implement our global HIV program. It's a program that's been attributed to saving over 15 million lives because of the hard work of many medical experts, as well as those on the ground who are working with the patients and clients in need. So I'm a big believer that we need to follow the science and follow the data. They should be doing that at the highest levels in the White House, down to our community level. It's an important thing. It's how we're going to get through to the other side of this epidemic. But, you know, my position on this stems from my experience in it and the fact that I've worked on these issues.
The president says, don't be afraid of COVID-19. Governor Chris Sununu says he's afraid of it, and he urges everyone to be very concerned about the virus. Which Republican are you listening to here?
Well, I am concerned. We're all concerned about the virus. We all have either family or friends who've been impacted either because they actually had the virus or because they know someone's been laid off or a business that's been shut down because of the resulting closures because of it. What we really need to do right now is follow the science and follow the data. It's something, again, I did in the global HIV program. We used granular data in order to identify where we needed to place resources and how to encourage community populations to respond. What we need right now, though, is to pull politics out of this. I mean, this is all impacting each and every single one of us. You know, Adam, for example, we're doing this on Skype right now. We're not at the studio together. It's impacting everyone. And so we need to take the politics out of this. Unfortunately, right now, Washington, D.C., in particular in Congress, you're seeing politics put into everything, including COVID relief. And that's really just a shame.
You benefited quite a bit in your primary from the personal endorsement of President Donald Trump. Could it be a liability for you, though, now with middle-of-the-road voters in CD1 who might like you, and they worry about the president and worry about your ability to be independent from him?
Look, I think anyone who I've gotten on the campaign trail sees I'm a straight shooter, that I'm willing to call balls and strikes and be an independent voice. It's the biggest problem with Congressman Pappas. The moment he got down to Washington, D.C., he started saddling up with the party leadership of his party, which is way to the left of where our district is. You know, he's voted with Nancy Pelosi literally 100% of the time. And that's been often at the expense of New Hampshire, whether it's our middle class, because he's now pushing. Right now, get this, Adam, Chris Pappas is the sponsor of a bill that would increase the payroll tax by 20%. 20% payroll tax hike right now in the middle of a pandemic at a time of economic uncertainty. That leaves our middle class behind. He sided with Nancy Pelosi against our law enforcement and actually backed a bill that would allow criminals to launch frivolous lawsuits against cops. This is a position that's so extreme that not only has New Hampshire's law enforcement condemned it, but Senator Shaheen, Senator Hassan, and also leadership from the NAACP here in New Hampshire disagree with Congressman Pappas on this issue. It's the reason why 2 police unions from Manchester and Congressman Pappas's home city, who endorsed him 2 years ago, have now endorsed my campaign, because he's undermined law enforcement in our state, and he's done it to appease Nancy Pelosi and his party base. Get this, Adam. When he was asked by New Hampshire's law enforcement about why he opposed or why he supported that bill, he said, because my party leadership needed my vote. That's not leadership right now, Adam. We need an independent voice to get down to Washington, D.C., deliver for New Hampshire, and get the job done.
It's very likely we're going to see the balance of power swing on the U.S. Supreme Court in a more conservative direction, and it's possible that precedents like Roe v. Wade could be overturned, and we might see the issue of abortion moved back to the state level. If that's the case, will you be urging Republican legislators here in New Hampshire to make abortion illegal?
Look, I mean, Roe is settled law. I don't expect that we're going to see that change anytime soon, despite some changes on the court. The biggest things we need to do, though, are make sure that we're having a constructive dialogue in this. I mean, I am pro-life, but, I think we need to also make sure that we're doing it constructively in a way that respects the positions on all sides.
Isn't that the point, though, of nominating Amy Coney Barrett for conservatives? I mean, this has been a 4-decade, 5-decade saga to get enough pro-life justices on the court. Is that not the goal?
No, the goal is to make sure you have justices on the Supreme Court who know that their job is to interpret the law, not to make the law. And so, look, Congressman Pappas and others are going to try to bring up a whole host of topics in order to scare voters. Fact of the matter is that what matters on the court is that you have people there who are going to have judicial philosophy that believes in following the Constitution. That's what you ask. There shouldn't be litmus tests, and there aren't litmus tests for these justices. And that goes for a justice that any president of any party has nominated in the past.
A lot of the criticism of the swamp in Washington is the so-called revolving door between government service and then lobbying or consulting. You left the State Department in early 2019. You launched your campaign for Congress at the beginning of this year, but in between, you revived your career as a political consultant. So how much money did your business generate in those 9 months?
Oh, I don't know. But, Adam, look, I did social impact work. I work with a minority-owned, woman-owned small business that tries to encourage female entrepreneurs, mostly in developing countries around the world. I've worked with some institutions and companies to expand healthcare access for low-income patients. I've worked with some companies to try to advance development of research and investment into post-traumatic stress. These are issues that are so important to our community. It was really a call to service, not to mention a lot of the nonprofit work that I've done, which I haven't actually, I've done pro bono. But that's the difference between myself and Congressman Pappas. I mean, Congressman Pappas inherited a multi-million-dollar business from his parents and grandparents, and good for him. God bless him. But it's a difference of experience. I've been out there. I grew up in a middle-class family. My dad worked in marine construction. My mom, for many years, was a bartender. So I've had to work for everything I've had to do in my life. Congressman Pappas is blessed that he's been given that opportunities from his parents.
Personal financial disclosure, though, with the House Ethics Committee, you said you had about $100,000 to $1 million in income from your business. Was that in that 9-month period?
Yeah, Adam, I think the way it works, it's actually within about a year or so. It's been about a year and a half. But let me just tell you, in that range.
You were doing that work while you were at the State Department then?
I'm sorry?
You were doing the consulting work while you were still at the State Department?
No, Adam, no. Because the way it does, you have to show your full 2 years of disclosure. And so it's all out there. It's all publicly available for folks who go online. I'll tell you this, it was much closer to the $100,000 range. They put these wide ranges in those forms. And, my form was filled out the exact same way that Annie Custer filled her form out. Congressman Pappas has no problem with Annie Custer's form.
How do you make the argument, though, that you can drain the swamp when that's your business background?
That I'm helping female entrepreneurs, we can absolutely drain the swamp. Remember, I'm the only candidate in this race that actually has signed a term limits pledge, that's actually said that you shouldn't serve more than 3 terms because these people get too cozy. Congressman Pappas is one of the members of Congress that's the coziest with lobbyists, and they've been funneling money to his campaign through associations. They've been funneling campaign and about to funnel even more money with dark corporate special interest money funneled into this race because of Nancy Pelosi's super PAC, the same super PAC, by the way, that that saved Congressman Pappas's campaign 2 years ago is now scheduled to come in with even more money. So Congressman Pappas owes his career to this dark corporate special interest money that's coming into this race. If they got him elected 2 years ago and they're about ready to try to get him reelected right now, because his record doesn't speak for itself. Right now, he supports an income tax increase down in Washington, D.C. He's undermined our law enforcement in this state. Those are things that are not relating to our and delivering for the people of New Hampshire. And so Nancy Pelosi is going to try to swoop in with a bunch of corporate cash and try to save his campaign again. That's not what we need here in New Hampshire.
All right, Matt Mowers, thank you for joining us on Close Up. We'll see you out there on the trail.
Thanks, Adam. Really appreciate it.